We are about 1 week in to our complete restoration on this Evo 8. So far, here's what we've done. Try to get the car running. We're very unsuccessful with that. Pulled the motor, pulled the trans. A day or so later, we ended up with the bare shell. I got a little bit crazy and carried away and decided, let's just do a full-on restoration. I went ahead and got the engine bay and the undercarriage sandblasted. Got the core support all fixed up where it was bent. Got a new trunk pan sectioned in. Replaced a frame rail in the rear. And now today, we need to get the entire engine bay and the underside of this car coated. Now the engine bay is going to be painted with the rest of the car, but the undercarriage, we're doing a different kind of coating on there. Before we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the trunk pan that we sectioned in yesterday. From here all the way over to there is all new metal from the parts car. We need to do a tiny bit of filler work to make sure no one ever knows, unless you're watching this video. I want no one to ever be able to look at it and say, wow, that has definitely been replaced. So we need to do a little bit of filler work where we welded in the new section, and then that whole edge needs to be seam sealed like it is from the factory. Let's start off with the seam sealer first. I went ahead and got the area cleaned up where the seam sealer is going to lay down with some wax and grease remover. Taped off the edges so we have some nice crispy lines like we do from the factory. And it was time to start laying down some seam sealer. Now I know the factory seam sealer is like a light gray or a white, and we're putting down some black, but keep in mind this whole trunk is going to be painted with the rest of the car, so it's all going to be covered anyway. Factory seam sealer is super thick, so I laid a ton on, grabbed a small spreader, applied some light pressure to make sure it goes in all of the little cracks and holes and whatnot, and then trying to replicate the factory finish of the seam sealer, I grabbed a piece of gray Scotch-Brite and I went over all of the seam sealer with that. It seemed to work out very, very nicely because it looks just like the factory seam sealer. Went ahead, pulled off the masking tape, and man oh man, that looks beautiful. Look at those crispy lines. I wasn't planning on this, but being that I already had seam sealer loaded up in the gun, I decided to spread a little bit on the underside as well, just in case there's any sort of pinholes that we could not see. Now keep in mind, I don't want anyone to know it was a super, super thin layer, which is going to be covered up by the undercoating anyway. Very pleased with how everything turned out. Let's move on to some filler on the weld. I'll be using this icing here, which is like a glazing putty. Got her spread out on the whole entire weld, and it was time to sand her down. Just finished up with all of the filler work. As you can see, there's not much at all, but that little bit should make a world of difference with how this thing looks. Granted, you won't be able to see any of this. It's not like a quarter panel where it's very important to be perfect like this one is, but of course, I want it as good as I possibly can get it, and I'm very, very excited because I know this is gonna look good. Before we start laying down some primer, I need to go ahead and pull off the fenders and get this core support prepped out and ready to go. In order to get the fenders off, we had to pull off the side skirts, and as soon as those guys were off, the fenders were able to come off. I used the combination of red Scotch-Brite, a wire wheel, 180 grit sandpaper on the DA to get this entire core support prepped out. After a light scuffing on the entire engine bay with 80 grit just to knock out some of the pitting from sandblasting and prepping out the whole entire core support, we are ready to start laying down some primer. So we're gonna start off with epoxy primer, and then the engine bay is gonna get filler primer, and the undercarriage is gonna get undercoating. But first, we need to mask off the whole entire car and the whole entire shop. I would love to do this in the booth, but of course you can't when you gotta do the undercarriage. You gotta do it on a lift. Now, being that the exterior of this car is really, really junky, I don't really care if we get any sort of overspray on it. Of course, I wanna minimize it, but I'm not too worried about it. Found some damage on one of the rails underneath, so I spent a few minutes trying to pull that out as straight as possible. The car is masked off. Once again, we don't really care about the exterior. I'm glad we're doing this now instead of after we spray the body, because then I would be super worried about it. And then I have this makeshift little paint booth, I guess you could call it, set up in the shop. I'm gonna start underneath, epoxy primer, the whole thing. Everything that's bare metal is getting epoxy primer. We could either use etching primer or epoxy. Epoxy is much better for big areas like this that we're doing. So we got it all mixed up here. Let's spray her out. Now, of course, I did not want to get my camera covered in epoxy, but epoxy primer is all laid down. It laid out very, very, very nicely. Here's the bay, one of the wheel wells, sheesh, rear wheel well. And now, of course, the whole entire undercarriage is sprayed with that direct metal epoxy primer. So moving on, we're gonna be spraying a little bit of high build filler primer in the engine bay, only in the areas that you can really see and that I want perfectly smooth and flat. As of right now, it's already really, really nice, but stuff like the frame rails, I want perfectly smooth. So we're gonna go spray some primer down on there. But first, let's do the undercoating. So this is Raptor liner. This is kind of meant for, I think, truck beds. I used this on an Evo build in the past. I freaking love this stuff. Never had any issues. Held up very, very well. Easy to spray, and it's relatively cheap, and it looks amazing. And when you buy the kit, it comes with the spray gun. This Raptor liner is very user-friendly. Here's the hardener. You fill it up to the line on this cup here, dump it into the Raptor liner itself, shake it up a bit, screw it onto the gun, and you're ready to start spraying. The nice thing with Raptor liner is it's very easy to control where it goes, not much overspray, and it has a nice textured finish. I'm telling you, when this stuff dries, it is insane how hard it is. Make sure you mask off your threads. After spraying some filler primer on the engine bay, it was time to get this thing unmasked and see how she turned out. Everything that is the lighter color gray has the primer on it, and everything that is dark gray is just the epoxy. So pretty much the whole bay has primer. I want it nice. I went ahead and squirted some etching primer on the bare metal in the trunk, and it looks beautiful. Cannot tell whatsoever, other than of course it's a different color, which when we painted this car, the whole trunk is getting painted anyway. It looks beautiful, and I'm stoked. And of course, here's the undercarriage. Well, let's start off with the fender wells, the wheel wells, super freaking nice. Undercarriage, if you're gonna undercoat it, make sure you mask off your threads, otherwise you will not have any threads. And then I just want to show you guys, right up in here somewhere is where we sectioned in the new trunk pan, and also here is our new frame rail that we installed. Pretty cool seeing the underside of this car look about 10,000 times better than the exterior. Well, it's the next day. Actually, if I'm being honest, it's 2 days later. That was a lie. I usually try to take Sundays off to spend with Bobby, hang out a little bit, and not work on cars all the time. But it's time to get back to work. Push this hunk of crap out of the way. I would drive it, but of course the battery's dead. One day it'd be really, really sick to not have to move cars out of the shop to work. Maybe one day I'll be rich enough for that. So I think today I'm gonna move on to doing some body work on the Evo. Now I was gonna wait for PDR, but if I'm being honest, I'm very impatient. PDR isn't until Wednesday and today's Monday. So if I can do it myself, if I can fix the quarter in the door myself. Come on, clunker. Smells like IPA in here still, thanks Jared. Not only can I, save some money, but I can learn a new skill set on how to fix body damage. I always like learning new stuff. It's a pretty big dent though, so I'm not really sure if we can figure that out or not. This undercarriage looks so freaking good. I tried to watch some other YouTube videos this morning, other people that know how to do body work. If you're ever wondering how I learn to do things, I'm being honest, the same way that you guys learn how to do things from me. If I can ever provide value, that's cool. I watch other people on YouTube. So I typed in hammer and dolly set, because I think that's what it was called. And it turns out I already have a hammer and dolly set here. Granted, it's a Harbor Freight special, but maybe it'll help in trying to get this quarter panel fixed. Because I don't want to wait till Wednesday. We could have this whole thing damn near ready for paint by Wednesday if we put in the work. So really the only things that need a lot of work, body-wise, is this quarter and this door. All these other little yellow marks on the car that have been on the car for a while, that's all just smaller stuff that I can easily take care of. But this quarter panel, man, I don't even know where to start. I guess I'm gonna grab my hammer and my dolly and go to town. I mean, I know a little bit. I've done a little bit of body work in the past, but nothing like this. I don't even know if this is a good set. There's a couple different styles of hammer. Little pointy, very pointy, flat, and these guys. All right, well, it's kind of hard to get to the backside as well with a hammer. If I grab a 2x4. I really don't know where to start. I'm worried I'm gonna mess this up more than it already is, but that's fine. Because anything's fixable. Let me grab a 2x4. All right, let's hammer. I've always wanted to be good at body work, but it's just one of those things that's hard. I don't know why it's so hard for me. So I got my dolly, I'm gonna put it on the backside. It's just so crusty. Try to smooth out some of this metal. There's this massive crease right here, right on that body line. I'm trying to figure out how to get that out of there. Well, I spent quite a few minutes on this. I got it better, but this is the one thing I'm worried about that I don't know how to fix. This pop can effect. So I might just leave this one to the professionals. I'm keeping in mind with every part I touch, how do we make this the world's best? I can powder coat, I can paint pretty good. Like I can lay down a pretty good paint job. I can build motors, but when it comes to body work, this is not okay. Imagine if there's filler on there and it shot off. So for now, I'm gonna leave that. I think I'm gonna move on to the door. This door has a pretty gnarly concave dent, which it might pop out if I just push on it from the backside. Hopefully I can still use this door panel. It's full of sand from the sandblaster. This is actually a pretty gnarly crease. The pop can effect once again. I really have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Well, I decided I'm going to stick with the initial plan and just drop the body off at PDR. They can fix the quarter, they can fix the door. There's a couple other little dings I'm gonna have them fix as well. Now I'm like standing here thinking, where do we even move on to next? I could do other body work on the car, but I don't want to keep jumping back and forth on body work. So I think I'm just gonna start tackling some of the stuff over here. Any one of these bins or the cart or the table or any of the stuff on the ground, this whole section here, all this stuff needs to be refurbished in some sort of way. We have a complete motor build to do, a transmission build, a T-case build, but I'm gonna start off with this car right here. So this is all the aluminum parts for the car. We have control arms, we have a subframe, a rear subframe, AC compressor, alternator, all the stuff on this car is super crusty. I think I'm gonna try something a little bit different this time around with aluminum parts on the restoration. And there's this thing called vapor honing that I want to test out. It looks like a pretty cool way to refurbish aluminum parts. So I think I'm gonna drop one of these off and have it done, see how good it looks. And if it looks good, we can have all of it done. I'm pretty sure this is gonna be the way to go, just to have a nice bare, kind of like a polished aluminum, better than OEM, hopefully, end result. But first, there's a lot of stuff here to pull apart. I'm gonna start off with control arms, get all the bushings and whatnot out of these control arms. They're all gonna be upgraded anyway, so they gotta come out either way. So I got the shop press here, and up in this bin, I bought like this bushing press kit. So we can either use this, I got some pipe up there, or some sockets to press all this stuff apart. Let's see what we can do. So I got this socket that fits perfectly on this bushing back here. Let's see if we can press this guy out. Oh, something like that. Put that guy on. It's really all in the setup. As soon as you get it set up right on the press, it's easy money. And stuff presses out of aluminum bushings or aluminum control arms super easy. Pressing out of steel, it's always a tighter fit. Aluminum is butter. Bam. Sometimes you just gotta be a little bit creative with what you're doing. For example, to get that one out, 2 3/8 3-inch extensions. And now the rubber should come right on off. Easy money. 2 down, 1 to go. We just got this ball joint back here, which under this boot is probably a clip. So as soon as we get that clip off, we can get the ball joint out. I know, we can use, even though it's not a circlip, should be able to use circlip pliers. Okay. There we have it. Oop. I guess you could consider that a circlip. Just a different type of circlip. I don't feel like moving the press up. Let me grab a shallow socket, and that should do the trick. See what I'm talking about? I'm impatient. I wanted it done immediately, but 5 seconds later, we're ready to press. I should learn how to be more patient one day. That was a bit tighter, but she came. She's loose. I've cracked one of these before. It's not fun when you split them open. But yeah, first one's done. Good to go. So stuff like this, I always like to take a photo of because they're set at a certain angle, they're pressed in at a certain angle, and I want to know where they're pressed in at or what angle they are from factory. When we go to press them back in, just a little trick if you guys are gonna make your control arms nice. Well, I got all of the bushings pressed out. I did not break any of the control arms, which is nice. But man, that took longer than expected. Someone eat my carnivore diet lunch. This is actually kind of interesting. I haven't had a single carbohydrate in like 20 days. Kind of weird. Only meat for 20 days. Only protein and fat for 20 days. Today we got, what's in here? Some leftover roast, I think that Bobby made. Some steak. Yeah. Kind of interesting. It's a little fun. Change it up a little bit. I mean, that's not why I'm doing it, but I'm trying to fix other issues, internal issues. It's like my body's got a rod knock and I'm trying to tune it with some food. I'm gonna go drop one of these off and have it vapor honed and see if it looks good enough. I mean, really for this car there isn't a good enough. It's either done or it's not done. But yeah, let's go drop this off at the shop and see if they can do it right now so we can see if it's good right now. That'd be cool. I'm gonna move on to some stuff that like you kind of shouldn't really take apart, but being that I want this car perfect, I'm gonna take these things apart. Not just these, but we got an alternator here. I'm pretty sure I pulled one of these things apart before. I think I know what I'm doing. And a starter, AC compressor, power steering pump, that kind of stuff. Like on most builds, I would just leave them like cleaned up, but not restored. But let's be real, this isn't a most build. This is like a build. It's gotta be perfect. Well, let's start off with the alternator. And by the way, I was not able to get a good example of the vapor hone. It'll be done tomorrow. So whatever we decide to do on the control arms, all the aluminum's probably gonna be done the same way. Stuff like this alternator and the starter housing and stuff like that. That comes off. That's the pulley. Should have had that zinc plated. Maybe I can replace it. 4 bolts right here. 4 screws in the center. And looks like that's about it. All right, let's try to just pop this thing apart. Maybe I gotta take that off. Ta ha ha. Well, this thing's gonna be quite the challenge to put back together, but we're this far, so only 2 more screws, and the whole shenanigan is apart. Hopefully I remember how this goes together. All just to coat it, or refinish it. Sweet. Easy enough. All right, a starter should be easier. In my opinion, just by looking at it, it looks more simple. So if we just go ahead and pull off this heat shield, or the heat shield, I guess you'd call it. That guy should be powder coated. A couple of screws, and this guy should just come right apart. All right. Now, of course, there's some stuff like this. You can't really refurbish this. You can clean it up for sure, but to get this thing re-zinc coated, I don't really see how that's a viable option. So some stuff you just have to be okay with it being 99%. Oops. Oh, all right. Just a couple little gears in here. I mean, if someone put it together, it's got to come apart somehow. This guy I want to make nice looking. This is all the stuff that we got to make nice looking. Those goodies. This thing we can't really powder coat. It's got all the magnets in it. So I'll probably just give her a nice paint job. Sand her down, get all the rust off. We are going to lose our sticker. Not a big deal. We'll take care of that some other day. Let's move on to the next product. Ooh boy, this is scary. I know for a fact I've never touched an AC compressor. Never pulled one apart. Do I dare? I dare. I don't know how this comes apart. I don't really think it's something you can just go on the Google and look at. Could be wrong, but I'll figure it out. All right. Be that way, boy. It leaked. I very well could just ruin this compressor right now. I want to learn, though, how these things work. This calls for a Google. Does Google know how to disassemble AC compressor? Perfect. AC compressor take apart, how it works, tear down AC conditioner. I'm gonna watch this right quick.
You guys, what the inside of an automotive AC compressor looks like. There's several different types. Here.
Okay.
I'm pulling off this too. It doesn't come off yet. But then there was a snap. First we start out at the clutch.
That's what I figured.
And there was just a single bolt in the middle.
Okay.
And then the electric crutch plate comes off. Easy enough. That just pulled right out of the center. Under no force. And then there was a snap ring.
Now I got it. See, Google does help. This guy just pops off. Then there's a snap ring, like he said. This is good. Okay. Now I bet we can pull off this guy. Thread that on so we don't hurt the threads. Grab a plastic hammer. We can remove the bolts. This is kind of complex. I'm a little worried if I'm being real, but let's keep going. What the hell is going on down here? Well, this was in there a certain way, so just like earlier, I'm gonna take a photo of how everything was, just so it can go back the same way. It's kind of interesting, a little offset there. How the frick does this come apart? I mean, I could leave it, but I really want this piece to be either coated or, what am I looking for? Vapor honed is the word I'm after. As my dad would say, put your purse down. He was right all along. Okay. That guy goes there. Getting into some deep territories here, uncharted territories. Now, if we really want this thing completely apart, we got to pull the bearings. A little bit of heat will help drastically. They should fall right out with heat. Expand the aluminum a little bit. The reason this works so well is when you heat, even if you're heating something that's steel and aluminum, for example, the bearing's steel, the casing's aluminum, the aluminum is going to heat up quicker and expand quicker than the steel. Which should allow the bearing to come out, hypothetically. Time to put my purse down. This thing is not coming out. Okay, well maybe it's just not meant to come out. Do we take the L? Definitely not a good way to get it from the backside either. And I don't have a blind bearing puller. We don't have to have this piece vapor honed. I can get it pretty clean here with just the greaser and aluminum brightener. So I'm just gonna do that because at this point, I'm probably gonna break the casing if I keep trying, or I'm gonna have to go buy some tools like a blind bearing puller to get that guy out. But we can get it close. Let me let it cool down, and I'll show you what we can do. While we wait for that thing to cool down, I'm gonna put all my accessories in different boxes. Fun fact, I've pronounced that word wrong my whole life, and I just found out right now from the guys over there that it's pronounced accessory and not accessory. That's what happens when you go to a online school. All right, let's see what we can do with this little guy. Here it is before. It's in pretty good shape, but I want it better. Let that soak in for a minute. Let's try some of this. Aluminum brightener. I've always had pretty good luck with it. I'm gonna need a new bottle though. Brush her around a little bit. Sometimes when I'm doing stuff like this, I just wonder why. Like, what's the point of all of this, you know? Like, I just put the freaking car back together, not worry about it, but I set out to build a nice car, so a nice car is what we're gonna do. Well, it kind of darkened the aluminum a little bit, it looks like, didn't brighten it. Really wish I could just get that freaking bearing out. Well, I think that's about as good as this piece is gonna get. Well, it's about that time of the night. Down at the shop. Gotta go try to get big at the gym. I've been trying to get big at the gym my whole life. realistically, like 12 years I've been going to this freaking gym. Or not to this gym, but to the gym. And I feel like I literally make no progress. But, you know, it keeps me sane. It's a good stress relief. I ain't quite as jacked as I want to be. And I'm definitely not as lean as I want to be, but that's the joy in it, right? It's always the journey, not the end destination. I've heard that saying a million times. But anyway, I feel like I'm in a big old dilemma with this Evo project. And I keep going back and forth on the paint that the color of the paint that we're gonna put on the car. It's for sure gonna be a paint project, no wrap here, absolutely not. I feel like the older I get, the more I dislike the things I used to like. Wrap, wide bodies, bags. I'm so far away from that right now, it's ridiculous. But of course, as you guys know, the car, why am I two-stepping? The car is tarmac black, and I've built a couple different tarmac black Evos. A car that I've never built is a yellow Evo or a red Evo. And if I wasn't doing an OEM style restoration, the car would 100% be sprayed an OEM. What is that? Lightning yellow, I think is what they call it. Whatever the OEM Evo 8 yellow is, I'd 100% paint it that color. So I'm trying to decide if I should just paint it the color I want to paint it, or do what I set out to do and like do an actual restoration of this car. Also, another problem is we already have wheels for the car that I ordered in, and they would not work on a yellow car, and they're $4,000 for these wheels, which $4,000 is a lot of money. So I don't know. I guess I'll go to the gym and do a little bit of squatty squats and some leg press, try to get jacked, and think about it, and maybe you guys can comment below. Should we just stick with the plan, tarmac black, or should I say, let's order another set of wheels? Like, it's not a type of set that you just strip and powder coat. They're big baller wheels. They're $4,000. They're expensive, right? Do that and just paint it yellow, because the whole car's getting sprayed either way. The fender wells and the undercarriage is going to stay black either way. Like, everything we've done so far, we could just leave it as is. But man, it's a big dilemma. And it's not like it's just a quick and easy change. Like, a set of wheels is a quick and easy change, or a front lip, or some headlights. To do a proper respray is weeks, if not a month of work. So I don't know. But yeah, I feel like must be the Domino's. I wish I could have Domino's. This freaking carnivore diet is kicking my ass. I feel like I don't know what I'm gonna do. So help me out if you want. If not, that's fine too. Alright, gonna wrap it up here. Hope you enjoyed today's chill video, and I'll see you boys bright and early tomorrow. I might start doing daily shit again. I keep going back and forth. I feel like my style of content's all over the place. Oh shit, don't rent him. Even though I'm not an OG YouTuber, but I've been doing this stuff for years now, 6-7 years. I'm still trying to find a style I actually enjoy. You guys know I've done daily stuff for the longest time. Like, I would upload it every single day. I'd film exactly what I'm doing that day and upload it. You know, that got sick and tiring for a while. I did that for the majority of my career on YouTube, and then I've done like what I've been recently doing, where it's a lot of voiceover stuff, and the amount of work I'm getting done in the videos is absolutely ridiculous. But dude, trying to do that much work in these episodes is so freaking tiring, to where you guys probably can't see me. I'm kidding, you can. It's so freaking tiring, dude. Like, tearing a whole car apart in one day, with like disassembling the motor and the transmission and the transfer case, is insane. So I'm still trying to find a style that is like sustainable for a long time, because I really do enjoy putting out content, and I want you guys to enjoy it too. You know what I'm saying? So we'll figure it out one day. But remember, it's the journey. It's the process, not the end destination. It's so hard for me to remember that sometimes too. And I feel like I just keep going and on, and I'm ranting left and right, but that's alright. It's so real, that saying, because you guys can clearly see all the cars that I build. I have the opportunity to drive those cars, but yet I find it so much more enjoyable building them. So it's kind of like a one-to-one comparison. Like that saying is so true in the cars for me as well, because it's so much more enjoyable building them instead of them being done and driving them. It's kind of weird. Well, I'm at the gym now, so good night.